Welcome to the Power of One. Today, I am going to be speaking with someone who has a very strong spiritual background, but her strong spiritual background was shaken, wasn't broken, but it was shaken when she lost her son, not to gun violence, but to a hit and run on Broad Street, right across the street from the 35th Police District. We're going to be speaking with her today. We're going to hear her story, and she is going to hopefully, hopefully share some words of encouragement for other mothers and fathers and other family members who have lost a child to violence. Welcome to the show, Reverend.
Oh, thank you, Melody. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story and encourage another parent.
Reverend, walk us through the day that you received word that your son was killed by a hit and run driver.
Actually, my husband and I, we were asleep and we got a phone call saying my child was in the street dead. And so I wasn't, because we were both asleep, I was trying to understand what the phone call was about. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because my son, was a law-abiding citizen, a taxpayer. It was like, what are you talking about? They say he's laying in the street and he's dead. My mind immediately went to like, somebody must have shot him, because we hear about gun violence, but we don't hear about vehicular homicide too much. And so when I got myself together, they said, no, he's laying in the street dead. He's outside of the 35th Police District.
Now, if I can interrupt you for 1 second, who called you and who knew that was your son?
Well, it was actually his fiance. And it was his fiance that had called me. And she was so hysterical. You want to be clear, because in my mind, not my child, not my son, went to college dropout, but then he went to trade school. And so we get to Broad and Chaplaws outside the 35th district, and my son is not there. And so I said, okay, what happened? So they were saying, let's go to the hospital. I said, well, the ambulance took him because the fire department is connected to the police station. So we go visit all these different hospitals, and my son is not there. And so we go back to the 35th district. They say, well, we don't know what happened, but we heard the accident. We know it was an accident. We don't really have any information who the name of the victim. And so in the meantime, his friends are gathered on the corner. So I asked them, what happened? Was it my son? Was it your friend? So one of his best friend, they said, what happened? He got off of work and they were always going to get something to eat off of Broad Street. My son decided to drive because he said he was tired from work. He got in his truck. Within 5 minutes, literally, they said 5 minutes, the three friends walked around the corner. My son drove around the corner with one of his godsons. He stepped out the car. By the time they turned around the corner in 5 minutes, he was laying in the street dead, they said.
Oh my
So they
goodness.
was all shook. And I said, are y'all sure? They said, no, we know it was him. We took, his ID and everything, the information. We thought they took him to the hospital. And so it was a bit of confusion. It was trauma, and then it was the tragedy, and then the trauma behind that, because we visit all the hospitals. So 3 days later, we're still looking for him. Nobody has any information.
So you don't know anything. Your son didn't come home.
Nothing.
Oh
didn't
my
come
goodness.
Home. And so I'm telling my daughters, my two daughters, and my relative, my husband. I said, maybe it's not him. We don't have a body. This can't not be. And his friends were saying, no, it is. So I was a little confused. I was like, something is wrong here. Where is his body? The hospitals, we calling all over the hospitals. You have Chestnut Hill, you have Temple, you have Einstein, Abington, Broad and Alany is the closest hospital. You have all these hospitals and nobody has his body. And so the mortician called the morgue, and this is where it gets a little hectic and a little confusing and a little crazy to me. The morgue said they could not look for my son's body because they had too many bodies in the morgue. They was too busy to look for him. So he laid there 3 or 4 days before they finally got him. They finally verified that his body was there.
They called you back, or you kept calling?
Morgue actually, it was the mortician that contacted the morgue. She was relentless, and I praise God for Nicole Bartlett Funeral Home, because her and my daughter are best friends. So she was really diligent in making sure that the morgue got back to her. So finally, she called me 3 or 4 days later, and she said, "We have the body." And she said, "Your daughters and your husband identified the body." So I said, "Well, I want to see my son." They wouldn't allow me to see him. And I didn't understand. I tried everything to go to her funeral home. They blocked me. What happened? My grandson, I called my grandson. I said, "Listen, they telling me they have Robert body, but I need to see him as his mother. I know he's an adult, but I need to see my child."
Now,
And he said, "Grandma,
who were you
my
saying
grandson,
wouldn't let you see?
the
It's the funeral
mortician,
home?
my husband, yeah, the mortician, my husband, and my daughters. They
Okay.
literally blocked me." So I'm like, "Well, what's wrong? Like, why can't I see him?" They was like, "No, we're just gonna wait. You need to wait, till we have the service." I was like, "No." And so I had called my grandson. I called so many family members, and nobody would take me to Nicole's funeral home, the Bartlett Funeral Home. So I said, I called Nicole. I said, "I'm coming, because if you have his body, I need to see him." She said, "Miss Steph, I'm not going to be open. I'll let you know when I'm going to be open." And I called my grandson. He said, "Listen, Grandma, you do not want to see him." And I was like, "Why?" He said, "Nobody wants to tell you, but we identified him through the eagle tattoos on his arms." He said, "It's really bad." And I just lost my breath. I said, what do you mean?" He said, "Grandma, you do not want to see that. You just can't. You can't take it." So I kind of left that alone for a minute, because I was like, "Well, what does he mean by that?" So I called a good friend of mine's, Reverend Mark Wright, and I said, "Listen, Mark, they won't let me see him. I don't understand." And he explained to me. He said, "Stephanie, is the reason why his body must be damaged beyond repair." And so when he said that to me, a light bulb went off, and I'm thinking, well, hit and run, it can't be that bad. Broken leg, arm, but it was bad. So the mortician calls me and tell me, "We're going to close this casket." And I said, "No, I want them to see what they did to my son. I don't care what it looks like. They need to see the damage. Whoever hit him, they need to see what they did to my son. Everybody needs to see this visual of him, because now I have to fight for the right to get compensated for him, to, press charges against him. They need to see we're not closing the casket. I'm not having a homegoing service with a closed casket. It's just not going to happen." And so she worked up until, it took us like almost 2 weeks probably to bury him, because 2 or 3 weeks, because he sat in the morgue unknown, John Doe. Then she said she was going to try to put him together to be presentable. We got all the items for him to be buried in. The suit didn't fix because his body had swollen up so bad he had blew up. The day before the funeral, I finally get to see my son. She had to put sunglasses on him, a baseball cap, the Eagles. We put him in all Eagles gear because he's such an Eagles fan. We had to put a turtleneck on him. I could tell his body had been mangled beyond repair. The way they had to lay the casket was a certain way, so you couldn't see the left side of his face. She did a good job. It looked like his smile, but it was just an awful experience. And the other sad part about it, the young man that hit my son Googled vehicular homicide the same night. My son died at 12:35 a.m. Saturday morning on January the 25th, 2023. 2020, I'm sorry. So when he Googled vehicular homicide, they had all the data. They went to his home in Mount Airy. He said he was going to turn himself in on Monday when the detectives went. However, he didn't turn himself in Monday. They go back like maybe a couple of days later, and he said, "Well, my lawyer said, you have to prove that I did it." That's what he told the detectives, knowing he did it. The other ironic part, we have the same last name. The other thing, because COVID hit maybe in March, 2 or 3 months after my son's death, so they couldn't get the DNA back. It took a whole year. I didn't know till probably a year later that my son went 6 feet in the air. And when he landed on the windshield.
Of
So
the
all the
driver's car?
on the driver's car. So because the detectives was trying to get the driver's DNA, because he said they had to prove that he actually hit my son. They had the car, they had the cameras and everything. So they had to prove that it was actually him driving. You know, the tinted windows, which is
Mm-hmm.
another whole issue. Actually, he did hit my son. You know, everybody knows it. But the blood that they got back from the DNA was actually my son blood. The driver blood was not in the DNA. It was all my son's DNA, which upset me even more.
Right. Now, so was your son, so he was parked, so he was probably getting out on Broad Street side,
He was getting
on the
out
street
of
side,
his truck. Yes.
on the
And
street
the
side, and
guy
that
was
guy
speeding
hit him.
up Broad Street. He hit him speeding down Broad Street. Actually, the data, the former FBI agent that did all the statistics and the data work was excellent, because the driver came from North Philly. He tracked him from North Philly off of his cell phone, speeding down Broad Street. He was the one that actually said that the young man had Googled vehicular homicide on Vernon Road, near where he lived. So he knew he hit someone, but he didn't choose to stop. My whole issue was, why didn't you stop to see if he was alive?
Right.
However, the other tragedy part is the court system part. When we get to court, he has a high-powered lawyer, and so it's 3 years later. The case has been postponement after postponement. The other tragedy of this, when I talked to Officer Mark Overweiss, who's been excellent through all this whole process, he's
He's
actually
awesome.
in charge of all the vehicular homicides. He was very helpful. He said, and he met with me and everything. He said, now, I'm going to tell you about the court system. Don't expect you're going to get a resolve within a year or two. He said, now COVID has hit. We have to gather all this information and all this proof. It's going to take time. So he did warn me. He gave me some very insightful information, but however, the information was great, but getting to the court part of it, postponement, because he has a great lawyer. Then I asked them, I wanted to sue him for, my son has a daughter, and I wanted the compensation because it was loss of income, because my son was a contractor. I said, well, she needs her still college fund. Now she only has one parent. So he stopped paying the insurance the month that he hit my son. In December 2019, he had stopped paying his insurance. So there was no insurance on the vehicle he was driving. That was another blow. The other blow was he actually has a job, but because he's a first-time felon, he might not get the allotted time for vehicular homicides. And so I asked for a plea bargain. And here's why I asked for the plea bargain. And my husband and my family was upset. I asked for 3 years. I said, I'm only asking for 3 years because he didn't stop. I said, I'm a mother. He has to have a mother too. I'm quite sure you don't raise your children at vehicular homicide, gunshot, but me being a woman, I wonder, how did his mother feel that this accident happened? I said, that's just 3 years. So he rejected it, because you could get up to 7 years. He doesn't want to plea.
Wow.
He rejected the plea bargain of only 3 years.
How old is this young man?
He's in his 30s.
Okay.
He rejected the plea bargain. I actually met with Larry Krasner, the DNA that's handling my son's case. I would say that it needs to be more training, but it's so normal now, vehicular homicide, they don't give it the attention that it needs. But it's still violence.
Right.
It's still a DUI, or you under the influence of some type. You're under the influence of something, because the young man was high. They tracked him from a hookah bar. So that means he was already high. I said, but you all focus, the city focus on gunshot, but not vehicular homicide, because my
Right.
son, he worked, he had just proposed to his girlfriend that Thursday.
Oh, wow.
He was dead by that Saturday.
Mm.
Um, he he was a contractor, so he worked for a painting company. However, his future brother-in-law played for Penn State. My son was starting to make it in his business because all the coaches from Penn State had signed him up to do contracting jobs.
Wow.
So he was just about to come into his own when his life was snatched
Mm.
from him. The DA that I have in charge of this case, I believe culturally that she's not doing her best. I think she's overwhelmed. I think, like I told Mr. Krasner, I said, you need to train them a little better how to address the parents. I say, when I go in a courtroom, soon I'm sitting there, my son's case is postponed in 5 minutes. I'm looking at this young man that's charged with the vehicular homicide, this case, he walks past me, no remorse. I said, that's an atomic bomb to me. Because what if I was irate or just a
Mm-hmm.
crazy
Mm-hmm.
parent? I want to kill him myself. I said, but you all need to put something in place where the defendant and the family victims do not meet up,
Right.
because that's
I agree.
volatile.
Right. I agree that the way the whole court system is set up, I think it's not good, and it can be very re-traumatizing to victims and co-homicide survivors. And we know Krasner is not the one who set that up. DA Krasner, no complaint. I have no complaint with him. The way the system is set up, it's not friendly. I will say this, that, and then I worked at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, and I know many people at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, and love a lot of them. The ADAs, which I don't think people understand, the ADAs, their primary goal is to fight this case. And I don't know if you've seen this, if you ever got your subpoena, it will say that young man who did the hit and run, it's
Yes.
him versus the Commonwealth. And your son is the witness. Well, of course, homicide witness, homicide survivor. So that's that ADA's job, to fight that case. But in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, they have victim witness advocates. And that advocate is the one who should be reaching out to you to console you, to educate you on that whole court process, and to hold your hand through that whole court process. I do agree, though, that the ADAs at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office should be more empathetic, and they should
Yes.
understand, and at least, again, have some type of connection with what's going on, and have trauma training. I will say that. And then I'm not being nasty towards anyone, but in working with victims and co-homicide survivors, everyone will tell you my loyalty is with them. And that's who I fight for every single day. So is the case still in court, or did it go to trial?
The case is still in court. What happened was this year I was fighting again, when I came to court. And of course, another postponement, September the 6th, my oldest daughter's birthday. I waited for her. I said, I need to speak with her. I said, because it's been 3 years. And every time I come to court, it's a postponement. And I don't understand. It's because it's 3 years now. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to my family. We need to end this. We need to bring closure so we can grieve. It's over and it's done. Mm-hmm. And so when I did speak with her, she asked me, was there a problem? I said, it is a problem. It's a problem when he murdered my son and left him in the street dead. It's a problem when they could not find his body. I said it was a problem when the morgue was too busy to look for him. It's a problem because he was a taxpayer and there's no compensation. This young man has paid a top lawyer. I know the lawyer's name. He is a price tag that he pays to stay out. I said, you all act like you all connected to the lawyer. I see you laughing and, talking to each other on the side, which no parent should witness that between a
Right.
lawyer to defendant. If you're friends, that's one thing. But I don't need to see that because it makes me think that you're compromising and that you're not being a part of the solution. You're not fighting for my son's right. And then she said, I really apologize. I said, your problem is you're so used to African American younger women using profanity, not addressing you in the proper way. I didn't come here to use profanity. I didn't come here to curse you out. I came here to let you know you need to do your job. And I said, and what's going to happen? And I said, and I promise you, this is not a threat. Every mother that lost a son in Philadelphia, I'm going to have them outside that DA office. If you postpone another case with my son, we're going to be outside and I'm going to have your name on one of those boards. I said, because you're really not cooperating here. I said, as a matter of fact, you called me and told me to look up the docu number. I should know when I'm coming to court. I said, I get one notice. Nobody's contacted me. I'm calling the DA office. I'm calling you several times, months and weeks. What's the status of the case? Because you let me know. You call me back right before. I said, I'm going to give you an example. You told me to come to court today. I knew nothing about. I had a whole nother court date. I said, when I come to you, I'm a grieving mother. That was my only son. He wasn't in the streets. He didn't sell drugs. The worst he did was a college dropout, but he went to trade school. I said, so when I come to you, I expect you to have concrete information or at least empathize with me, console me, and let me know this is the court system. It's not you for me to hang in there. I said, I got none of that from you. Nothing from you. I'm chasing you. Why am I chasing you? And in a matter of fact, I told Larry Krasner, I said, the only one contact me was Melody Nelson. I was like, she's the only one that actually reached out, that encouraged me. I said, even if we didn't talk, you sent the email. How are you? How's the case? What's going on? And Mark Overweiss and also Councilman Isaiah Thomas. So I really thank the three of you. I even protested in front of the 35th district because guess what? The technology is outdated for hit and run drivers. That's why it takes so long for the cases to get solved.
There was no footage.
They were taking pictures with the cell phone. When the fire department picked my son up, it was a regular emergency wagon. And what I found out in my own research, the counties have a special truck for hit and run drivers. They solve their cases immediately. Philadelphia County doesn't have that technology. Nobody wants to fit the bill. Nobody has a grant to help solve these vehicular homicides. And so I was fighting for Captain Overweiss to get funding when I did the protest. It wasn't about the 35th district. It was about waking up the politicians. Listen, you all need to get on this. City council, you're missing it. You're just too stuck in the gun violence, but now you need to get involved in this vehicular homicide because these young men or women are driving their vehicles and getting away with it.
Yes. That's
a problem.
Now, did it go to trial? Is the preliminary hearing done?
Well, here's the thing. Now we were supposed to go to trial again in September, right?
Let me ask you a question. What was the outcome in the preliminary hearing?
Well, because he didn't take the plea bargain, he wants to go to trial with a judge. He does not want a jury trial.
Okay. So did he waive his prelim?
No.
Okay, so he was held on what charges?
He was held on vehicular homicide.
Okay.
Now he got out on bail. Yes, he got on our bail. I believe his bail was $250,000.
Okay.
So that's not a little bit of money, but you only pay 10% of that, of course.
Right.
So his bail was set high. Thanks for the people who did come out and fight, and me sounding the alarm, blowing the trumpet. I think had I not been proactive, none of these things would have happened.
Right.
I just kept at it. I kept calling the DA office. I joined Families of Safe Street, which have been helpful somewhat, to get this resolved. And so now we have to go to jury trial. So the last time I went to court, here's the thing: the judge wasn't there. The DA wasn't there. They told me it was a mix-up. The court date is September the 6th, 2024. So I sat out. I literally sat on Filbert Street for an hour. But let me roll back some. The last time they had postponed it, he came up to me because I'm crying. I'm not hysterical. And I was like, Lord, how long? How long is this got to go on? I said, but I got to fight on. I said, it's not fair that he's above ground and my son is in the ground at Ivy Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to a cemetery. My son is 6 feet under that he did not even deserve it. This young man is walking the earth like he did nothing. And I don't even see the remorse. I said, that's why I'm asking for the 3 years. I'm not trying to ask him for life or electric chair.
Mm-hmm.
I just want some little bit of consequences, and I want him to go on with his life. I said, I'm tired. I said, because nobody really tells the truth. You know, catfish you, whatever they call it. They gaslight you. They stroke you, but nothing happens. And I said, this is not good, because my child was somebody. He said, well, what I'll do, I'm going to take her off the case. He said, you don't have to worry about her anymore. I was like, okay, I'm satisfied with that. Don't want her to lose her job, but she's not doing
just take
her
her
job.
off my son's case.
Yes,
Yeah.
just take off. I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied with that. He said, I'm going to handle it. And then he said something interesting. He said, I'm going to be honest with you. The judge that has your son's case, he's a fair judge. He said, now, he doesn't give people the maximum. He's going to look at your son's case. He said, the young man never been in trouble. So that's beneficial to him.
Yeah, so, and that's going to play a part. So I want to say this to you in closing, Reverend, you make your noise and you continue to fight for your son. I know you're tired. I know you're married. I know you have other children. So you lean on your husband when you are too weary to fight at that time. You lean on your other children when you're too weary to fight at that time. Let them carry the burden for you, but you cannot stop fighting. Like you said, the system in the city of Philadelphia is broken. And I will say that. I'm not throwing shots or shade at anyone, but you call me when you need me. You know, anytime, day or night does not matter. And I will fight with you. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, Melody, thank you for having me. It's just been a blessing and a great opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Understand that the fight is just beginning. We have to fight for what is right, and we have to be the ones to make a difference.